6. The office that never left. Why paper refused to disappear. The prediction, what we thought. By the late 1990s, the phrase paperless office had become shorthand for an inevitable future. Once documents were created digitally, stored digitally, and transmitted digitally, paper would simply become unnecessary. Filing cabinets would vanish. Printers would gather dust. Contracts, memos, reports, and records would live entirely on screens. Work would become cleaner, faster, and more efficient, unburdened by the physical clutter of the past. This prediction was often framed less as a bold forecast than as a long overdue correction. Paper, it was argued, was a workaround from an earlier era. Digital tools had already replaced typewriters, carbon copies, and physical mail. Eliminating paper felt like finishing the job. By 1999, many believed the transition was already underway. The only uncertainty was how quickly the last sheets would be printed. Why this prediction made sense in 1999. To understand why the paperless office seemed so close, it helps to remember how new digital work still felt at the end of the 20th century. In 1999, email had largely replaced internal memos. Word processors had replaced typewriters. Spreadsheets had replaced ledger books. Files could be saved, copied, and transmitted electronically. For many office workers, the act of creating information had already gone digital. Paper often entered the process only at the final step, printed from meetings, signatures, or archiving. From that vantage point, it was easy to assume that paper was merely lagging behind, waiting for habits to catch up with technology. There was also a strong efficiency argument. Printing cost money, storage took space. Physical documents were harder to search, duplicate, and secure. Digital files promised perfect recall, instant sharing, and zero marginal cost. In an era obsessed with productivity gains, eliminating paper felt like low-hanging fruit. Importantly, this optimism existed before laptops were ubiquitous, before cloud storage, and before reliable digital signatures. Even so, the momentum felt obvious. If offices could already function mostly through screens, why wouldn't they finish the transition once the tools improved? The prediction also aligned neatly with the broader millennium mood. The late 1990s carried a belief that modernization would arrive in clean linear steps. Old inefficiencies would be engineered away, systems would simplify. The future of work would be lighter, faster, and more rational. Paper, bulky and stubbornly physical, did not seem like it belonged in that future. Who said it, and where? The irony of the paperless office prediction is that it was already old by the time the 1990s revived it. The phrase gained prominence in the 1970s, notably in coverage by Businessweek, which explored how computers might reduce reliance on paper in corporate environments. As computing power increased through the 1980s and 1990s, the idea resurfaced repeatedly, each time with renewed confidence that this wave of technology would finally make paper obsolete. By the late 1990s, the trope had become almost conventional wisdom. Consultants promised paper reduction. Software vendors marketed document management systems. Executives spoke confidently about going paperless as a cost-saving and environmental initiative. Unlike many futurist predictions, this one did not come from a single visionary voice. It emerged organically from the convergence of office automation, digital storage, and networked communication. Everyone seemed to agree it was coming. That unanimity made the eventual outcome all the more surprising. What actually happened, 2000 to 2025? The paperless office did not arrive. In fact, for many organizations, paper use increased. As computers became more common, printers became cheaper, faster, and more accessible. Emails were printed just in case. Drafts multiplied. Presentations were handed out on paper even when displayed on screens. Digital convenience paradoxically made printing easier than ever. By the 2000s, offices were producing more documents, not fewer. Even as digital tools improved, paper persisted for reasons that technology alone could not solve. Contracts were printed for signing, regulations required physical records. Meetings felt more manageable with paper packets. People trusted what they could hold, mark up, and annotate. The irony deepened in the 2010s. Cloud storage, collaborative software, and mobile devices finally made truly digital workflows possible. Electronic signatures became legally accepted. Tablets replaced notebooks in some contexts. And yet, paper remained stubbornly present. By 2025, many offices used less paper than they once did, but few were truly paperless. The office did not shed paper. It learned to coexist with it. Verdict. Status. False. The paperless office did not materialize. Despite decades of increasingly capable digital tools, paper remained a persistent part of office life. Its role changed, but it never disappeared. In many periods, paper usage actually grew alongside digitization rather than shrinking in response to it. The prediction failed not because technology stalled, but because it misunderstood human behavior. Why it played out this way? The core mistake was assuming that digital efficiency automatically replaces physical preference. Paper offers qualities that screens still struggle to replicate: tactile feedback, spatial memory, ease of annotation, and cognitive comfort. For many tasks, reading long documents, reviewing complex materials, brainstorming, paper remains intuitively useful. There were also institutional reasons. Legal systems, regulatory requirements, and compliance frameworks often lag behind technology. Organizations default to redundancy: print it and save it digitally. Risk aversion, not inefficiency, drives many paper-heavy workflows. Most importantly, the prediction underestimated habit. Office practices are cultural as much as technical. They persist not because they are optimal, but because they are familiar, trusted, and socially reinforced. Paper survived because it fit how people actually work, not how systems designers hoped they would. What this prediction teaches us about the future. This case is a reminder that eliminating a tool is harder than replacing a task. Digitization excels at adding options. It struggles at removing them. New tools layer on top of old ones, creating hybrids rather than clean substitutions. The future rarely arrives as subtraction, it arrives as accumulation. In 1999, the paperless office felt like a finishing touch, a final sweep of inefficiency. In reality, it exposed a deeper truth. Progress does not always simplify. Sometimes it complicates. One sentence takeaway. The office digitized, but paper endured, proof that human habits outlast even the most confident predictions.